Iran is a source of all the problem in the Middle East. If it's gone, it's a huge opportunity.
Where does that leave the 2.2 million people of Gaza, the 3.5 million Palestinians in the West Bank?
You are falling to the same trap. The trap that the source of the problem in the Middle East is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
You think it's Iran?
I think it's Iran. A regime collapse will be the best result of this campaign.
But you could get chaos as a result in Iran. You could get what we had in Libya or what we had in Afghanistan.
Nothing will be worse than this regime.
Welcome to this special edition of the Fourcast from the hills above Tel Aviv. There's an awful lot going on, as you can imagine. We've got the continuing ballistic duel between Iran and Israel. We've got still the threat, or perhaps it's a promise, of President Trump getting involved on Israel's side. And the key question in all this is what would the blowback be from that involvement, but also what can the Americans actually achieve in terms of neutralizing Iran's nuclear program? Well, someone who knows the answers to both of those is General Amos Yadlin, the only human being alive to be involved in the neutralization of two nuclear issues. One was the 1981 attack on the Osirak nuclear reactor in Iraq, where he was a fighter pilot, and then as head of Israeli intelligence in 2007. General Yadlin, it's a pleasure to have you on the Forecast. If the Americans get involved, right, if Trump decides to get involved in this, what difference will that make? And what do you think the reaction could be from Iran itself or from Hezbollah, for instance?
I think the importance of the American participation has to do on the technical issue of destroying most of the Iranian nuclear facilities. There is like 20 sites. Israel can reach 19 of them. There is one important place called Fordo, which is very much fortified against the most formidable bombs that Israel possesses, and it cannot be penetrated by Israel, and the only air force that can destroy it is the American Air Force. So this is about the engineering part of the house. But the political part is even more important, because if you destroy even 90% of the Iranian capabilities, the 10%, if you don't do any agreement and you let the Iranians develop what they want to develop, they will have the nuclear bomb. Not in 6 months, not in 1 year, but in 2 or 3 years. So what is important is to reach a different agreement on Iran nuclear ambitions.
A political agreement.
Political agreement.
But can that be done if you push them into a corner?
No, on the contrary. When you push them enough to the corner, there will be negotiation, and Mr. Witkoff will come like Popeye, and they will come with a very weak cards. So this is the political objective of this campaign, and the Americans, as I say, they can contribute to the engineering part of the house, but more to the political goal.
And if the Americans get involved, do you think that will enhance the political strategy of bringing them to the negotiating table in a weakened position, or could it have the opposite effect?
Let's speak about the American intervention, because it may be in two forms. One form is the surgical Fordo operation, accompanied with a message: we are not interested in destroying Iran. We are not fighting against the Iranian nation. We are only helping the Israelis to complete the nuclear mission. Don't even think about retaliation, because then we will go to a full-scale war. The other option is to say the Iranians are going to retaliate. They may not listen to the message. Let's preempt at least on every element of the Iranian military that can attack our forces in Qatar, in Kuwait, in UAE, and make sure that the Iranian retaliation will be as weak as it can be.
From what you know about the Iranians and what you can imagine their current position to be like, what do you think they will decide to do?
I think the Iranians were surprised very much from the attack 6 days ago. They were in a state of shock, surprise, but they may getting out of the trauma and craft a strategy that will try to take advantage of their strengths, which is strategic patient, long war that will make the price for the Israelis and for the Americans higher, hoping that they will do something like the 8 years of the war against Iraq.
Yeah.
However, don't mislead ourselves. It is not the same Iran. Most of the Iranians now hate the regime, don't want to go to even 8 months of war. And Iran itself, in 1988, the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, say, I'm drinking the glass of poison because the Iraqis are now firing missiles to northern Tehran, where the elite is living. So let's have a look. Israel have done it not in the 8 years, at the beginning of the war, in the first or second day. So I think there will be a lot of pressure on Iran to end the war. But we need, I think, about a week to see where the regime is going, what is the decision-making process now. Is the supreme leader really understand what's going on? You know, in the dictatorial regimes, the bad news are not going up so quickly.
Right.
And he may see a different picture of the world that is really there.
Was it helpful for Prime Minister Netanyahu to say, as he did the other day, that, you know, regime change could be one of the results of this? Why not go for regime change? And he wasn't exactly calling for it. He wasn't saying that Israel was pursuing it, but he said it would be a welcome result. Was that a helpful thing for him to say?
I think it was very smart not to put the regime change in the list of the objective of the campaign.
Which he didn't do.
Which he didn't do.
Not publicly, anyway, yeah.
And I think we are not good in having instrument to induce a regime change.
Right.
The lessons from Iraq, from Afghanistan, from anywhere, Libya is a bad lesson.
Yeah.
So it is smart not to put it on the list. We are also not good in predicting when it will happen. 1988, nobody predict the collapse of the Soviet Union. Nobody predict the collapse of the Egyptian President Mubarak or Assad. So we have to be very modest on that. After saying that, a regime collapse will be the best result of this campaign.
But you could get chaos as a result. In Iran, you could get what we had in Libya or what we had in, you know, Afghanistan.
Nothing will be worse than this regime. This regime is very cruel. He has the goals of wiping Israel off the map. He is the source of non-stability in the Middle East. If there will be a chaos, which I'm not sure, Iran is a state with a tradition of a state. It is 3,000 years old empire that know what they want. And if it will come back to another regime, it's maybe taking some time, but they will be busy in their own.
Yeah.
And they will not endanger Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Yemen, and the Western world. So nothing is worse than this regime. Point.
Again, if the Americans get involved, is it possible that the political landscape in the Middle East will be so disrupted that even those countries that are currently on Israel's side or on the fence or on America's side might be forced to intervene against either Israel or America?
No way. No way.
Why?
I just came from a defense conference in Prague. So the Arabs are calling for stability, and we all understand why. They want stability as the main political phenomena of their regimes, their kingdoms, the export of oil. However, they will not shed a tear if Iran will be destroyed. Iran is a main threat to the Gulf states and to any Arab country, any Arab country. So, to your question, I'm looking at it exactly from the other side. That if the Iranian regime will be toppled, it's a huge opportunity for President Trump and for the Arab countries to shape the Middle East in a new alliance, Arab, American, Israeli, that will end the war in Iran, end the war in Gaza, go forward with normalization, go forward with non-belligerency. And Iran is a source of all the problem in the Middle East. If it's gone, it's a huge opportunity.
Where does that leave the 2.2 million people of Gaza, the 3.5 million Palestinians in the West Bank, who are more angry, more bitter, more upset than they've ever been?
I think you are falling to the same trap. The trap that the source of the problem in the Middle East is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
You think it's Iran?
I think it's Iran. I think we cannot solve the Israeli-Palestinian issue because Iran is encouraging the terrorist group, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, to spoil any going forward. So we have to finish the war in Gaza, absolutely.
But what's on the horizon for the Palestinians in Gaza, or indeed in the West Bank? Their own state, living as second-class citizens in an Israeli state? What ideas do you have there?
This is a subject for another interview. We're coming today to speak about the war in Iran.
But isn't that also a problem that needs to be solved?
Of course, and that's what I said. I said if Iran will be defeated, it will be much easier to solve the Israeli-Palestinian issue because the terror organizations that they supported with money, weapon, ideology will be weaker. And those in the Palestinian part of the problem that there is no peace has to do with Israelis and Palestinians. You know what the Palestinians are shouting in the street of London? Yeah, Palestine from the river to the sea.
We also know what the settlers think. They say Israel from the river to the sea. I mean,
so let's weaken those who are against peace, and it can be done only after we finish the war in Iran and we finish the war in Gaza. We will remove Hamas, who is against peace, against two-state solution.
So you think this two-state solution still has some leverage, so it has a possibility?
Two-state solution disappeared on the 7th of October. But it can come back. It can come back after we defeat Hamas. I think there will be Palestinians that will do the thinking of where it led them, the Hamas and the terror way. In my plan, that I say you need another interview, but it was published in November 2023, that the Gaza Strip will be under an Arab mandate. It will be managed by Palestinians, technocrat Palestinians, with some connections to the PA, but it should change the Gaza Strip into a non-militarized region with an Arab education that is not inciting for terror and from Palestine from the river to the sea. Then we will have a chance for peace. It's unfortunately a generation from now.
Just getting back to Trump and Israel and Iran, do you think Trump's somewhat erratic, unpredictable behavior is helpful to what Israel wants to achieve here or not?
No, I think Trump is in a dilemma. On one hand, he is against forever wars. He has the MAGA people, Make America Great Again, that want isolation, don't want America to be involved in the global affairs. On the other hand, he speaks about peace through strength. And he thinks that America should deter Russia and China. This is Make America Great Again. So who will decide what is the right interpretation? Who will make what is Make America Great Again? It's Trump. So I think at that moment, Trump loves winners. You know, America in history came to rescue countries that failed.
Like ours.
Like yours in World War I, in World War II, like going to Kuwait against Iraq. This is the first time that America can join a war on national security goal for America, but with a winner, and helping them to finish the war.
On that question, if they don't get involved for whatever reason, whether it's the MAGA camp or they're worried about blowback in the Middle East, can Israel finish this war on its own terms without Trump's help?
When you say finish, you may ask about achieving all the goals. This is not easy. It's not easy. to destroy. As I say, Fordo is...
So Fordo stays, basically.
Fordo may stay. Never underestimate the Israeli innovation on other means to destroy Fordo, not by the Air Force, but it will be much difficult to complete the missions. However, for me, it's more interesting what is the right time that you are in a climax with your achievement and now you start going down. You know, even successful wars always look like a big victory in the beginning, and then it may change. So Israel must find the time that it achieves most of its goal and look for a mechanism to end the war. Of course, there is the other side. And we discussed the strategies that the Iranians may choose. But I think we have now a huge leverage against Iran. We achieve air superiority. As a fighter pilot who believe in air superiority, what was achieved there is amazing.
Air superiority, which Israel now has, doesn't mean that they still can't fire ballistic missiles at Tel Aviv.
No, this is another story. It's the story of the campaign against ballistic missiles. By the way, Israel has the best air defense in the world, ballistic defense.
The Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow,
and intercepting all the drones. About 99% of the drones, 100 of them, that were launched against Israel were destroyed. So this is air superiority in defense. But we have air superiority over the enemy strategic areas, which is, I think, will make it very difficult for the Iranians to adapt a strategy of long war, war of attrition.
Just on their strategy, what do you think it is at the moment? Because they're still firing missiles every day and every night, but a relatively small number, I gather. Is that because they're worried about running out?
I think it has to do with both. Their capabilities were destroyed, were reduced dramatically. Once again, as a veteran of 1991, I saw the Americans trying to hunt launchers, and during the whole war, zero success.
Really?
Yeah. And here, about 50% out of 300 launchers were already destroyed.
And without launchers, those missiles are useless, right?
Exactly. So no doubt that their capabilities went down. But it also has to do with their intentions. If they're thinking about a long war, they have to have economy of launching. Yesterday, it seems like they decided that they are going to a very low number of missiles in every attack to keep the Israelis running to the shelters and to disrupt our life. This morning, it was more massive attack. And of course, there is the other side. We have to make sure that we have enough interceptors and to do the right decision which of the missiles will be intercepted and which one you can absorb.
A technical question on Fordo. The bombs, the American bombs, those MOP bombs, I think they have 20 of them launched by the B-2 bombers, they can penetrate 60 meters into the ground. I'm told that Fordo is 80 meters in the ground. So how does that work?
First, Fordo is under a mountain. And the mountain at the top is, if I remember right, 110. But you are not attacking them.
You go
on
to the
top.
side.
You go to the side here, to the side here, when you know that you can penetrate. And there is also a technique that you drop the first bomb, which is doing 60, and then in the same hole, you drop the second bomb. So another 60. Done.
Final question. Much of the world sees this as a really big moment of peril, for your two countries, but also for the region, perhaps beyond. Is that the way you see it, or do you see it as a moment of opportunity?
I think all the grave predictions that if Israel attack Iran, there will be at least regional war and maybe World War III. All these predictions were found too pessimistic and not connected to reality.
And you still believe that, even though we don't know whether the Americans have got involved or not?
I always said that no World War III, no regional war, maybe more than Israel and Iran if the Iranians will decide to go after their threat to close the Strait of Hormuz or to attack Americans. Pay attention that they are very, very careful. So I think it's a moment of opportunity. If Iran will change, if the regime will fail, and even if the same regime will not have these formidable instruments of nuclear program in the threshold and thousands of ballistic missiles and terror organization all over the Middle East, it's a wonderful opportunity to shape the Middle East towards peace. Let me tell you the last word. President Trump wants very much to have Nobel Prize for Peace.
You think that's still possible?
I'm not sure the Norwegians will give it to him. What drives him crazy is that Obama got it in the first term, in the first year.
100 days,
without doing any contribution to peace. So he has a plan. His Nobel Prize for Peace is a table with 4 legs. Ceasefire or peace in Ukraine, peace in Gaza, agreement with Iran on the nuclear issue, and normalization of Israel and Saudi. Each one of them is a Nobel Prize for Peace. He wants all of them. But pay attention, 3 of them are in the Middle East. And to shape differently the Middle East, Iran should be removed, and then the sky is the limit, opportunity-wise.
You're an optimist.
Let me tell you something. When I was chief of intelligence, I used to brief President Shimon Peres. And you know, when you are chief of intelligence, you usually put forward the risk. And President Peres say, Amos, why you are so pessimistic? The pessimist and the optimist are dying the same, but living differently.
General Yadlin, thank you very much indeed. That's it from this special edition of the Forecast and the hills above Tel Aviv. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.